Welcome to the Silent Podcast, where we are anything but silent, and we have a new show here. I'm really excited about this coverage. This is the Goated Podcast, and I'm Mark, and I'm here as always with my co-host, the lovely Josiane. How are you?
I am so excited. First of all, this is the first time we were like having a show together, so I'm
Yeah,
hyped about that. But I'm also so excited to talk about the show because let's be real, the show is messy. Like everything happening on the show, the Twitter streets. I'm just excited to like dive into it all and really have these conversations going.
like it's one of those things when I heard about this cast like about a year ago. I'm like, this sounds like a really fun show. Daniel Tosh is hosting, who's like a known reality TV super fan, and it looks like it's gonna be kind of like I Love Money, maybe, and that's actually a lot what it is.
Mm.
And the chaos that we've been given so far in the first three episodes is so exciting and so promising for the rest of this series.
For sure, for sure. The GOAT was announced a while back, like you kind of mentioned. I feel like it's been over a year. And so I think anticipation was building. I, for example, was really excited about specific people on the
Mhm.
coming on the show. Who were you looking at in terms of like the cast and stuff?
So when I saw that promo photo of Daniel Tosh and the 14 players, I mean, I'm a longtime super fan of Wendell Holland, so I was really excited to see him. I was really excited to see Dave Vaughn, and I was really excited to see Alyssa Edwards. Since the drop has happened, I've become a 90 Day Fiance fan and realized that Pow is like perfect TV, and that is the thing here. And I was excited about Reza because I feel like he didn't get a fair shake in the traders. How about you? Who were you excited about?
So I am also a big Davon fan. I'm gonna be let it known. That's my girl. I ride
Mhm.
for Davon, you know. If I disagree with some things, that's amongst like the DMs or something,
Yeah.
like not on the Twitter streets. But aside from Davon, I recently in the last year got into Vanderpump Rules because of
Mhm.
Scandival. And so I watched all the seasons from season one and I like went ham last summer and that's how I discovered Kirsten. And Kirsten is a messy, messy person.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Ooh, Kirsten on a show where there's game and strategy definitely got me excited." Obviously, I watched Drag Race, so I knew who Alyssa Edwards was. So I was
Mhm.
excited to see how that would work out. Wendell as well through Survivor. And I knew about Reza. I hadn't seen the best things about Reza, to be real honest with you.
Yeah.
And so I was curious to get my own perspective as to who Reza is on this show. And the only other person I knew was Joey from the
Oh yeah,
circle.
Joey. Yeah.
And I'm no shade to Joey, but he's not one of the most memorable winners for me in terms of the circle. He played as himself. He was all about loyalty. And I don't think I was actually rooting for him. So I was interested to see how he would play in this context. And well, we saw how that lasted.
I think honestly, I do think he did the best he could, like because it was such a chaotic first episode. But I do agree. For me, he is like a middling winner in the circle. I love this circle a lot, and I think that that cast, as iconic and amazing they are, they weren't the best game players. Like, give me a Delisa, give me a Sam, give me a Brandon. People like that. When I think of like great circle winners, but
Yeah.
I how how did you feel seeing Daniel Tosh be the host? Like, what's your history with him?
I wasn't familiar with him at all. I'm going to be super honest. A lot of these hosts in general, I'm not super acquainted with. I really go into these reality shows for the premise and the game concept of
Mhm.
it. And so I was like, okay, he seems notable. I mean, Joey had a really big reaction when he walked into the mansion. And I was like, oh, he must be a big deal. And I guess I kind of understood that he was a comedian very quickly. So I wasn't very neutral, and I think it took me a little bit of time to get familiar with him and like the way he hosts this show. But I think this show is just meant to be camp, and I think he's a camp person. And
Mhm.
so it was a little strange for me because I'm not used to this type of host and this type of like tone for a competition show, but I quickly got adjusted. But you were telling me that you were familiar with him. What's your history with him?
Yeah, so I'm from Florida. I'm a few years younger than him. And that's his background. He's from Florida. And like he was raised like in a major city in Florida, in basically Orlando, and
Mhm.
a lot of his humor is like Florida is a joke type humor. That's how he got started. But like also, as you've noticed, as you probably have heard, like he had that popular show on Comedy Central in the States, Tosh.0, which lasted for 13 seasons, I think, and like 300 episodes, where he would skewer the internet in a loving, respectful way, where it's clearly a character, kind of like how he is hosting the GOAT. Um, and I've always enjoyed his sense of humor. I've always found to be very funny, very, very strange, very off the wall. And I was really excited to see how he was going to host this. We're going to talk about that, of course, because I think his hosting, coupled with what we see in this first dump, is just really, really enjoyable.
For sure. I'm excited to dive into this first episode.
Yeah. All right. Let's get started, right? Okay. So, like, episode 1, the GOAT. I love how Dale Tosh is like immediately sets the tone where he's quite eager. It's kind of like eager funny. And I love how he immediately says that this is the best cast they could get for these days.
I thought that was very comedic. I was like, you know what? I think that immediately set the tone. I feel like, a lot of these shows take themselves really seriously. And so for it to be like, oh, this is a cast we got, because this is what we could afford and this is what we could get at the time. I thought that was really funny. And I was like, okay, so it's a show that doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah. And that's like part of the reason why I feel like this has the energy of like the VH1 celeb reality shows, like Flavor of Love, Rock of
Mm.
Love, I Love Money, all of that weird. We'll do what we need to win money, and it looks like it's shot in a backyard. Like the energy of the show gives me like very high end live reality game, but with
Mm.
like reality players.
Like a sequester live moment type
Kind of,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For sure. It's definitely I don't know. I think when you call yourself the GOAT, like it just seems like when you're gonna say the greatest of all time and like all that thing, like all those things, like the hype kind of gives challenge, and then you get there and you see the juxtaposition, and you're like, oh, okay, let's rock with it. I think that first challenge was very indicative of the
Uh-huh.
energy we get in terms of like what the production value was gonna be. It's definitely not the challenge, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And it's not trying to be either. Like it's trying to be, hey, we have a pool and a big backyard. And that's definitely the energy we're getting from the show. Um, how do you feel about this cast? I think it's a really we're breaking down the cast right now, but like I think like I do agree this is a really good cast from a wide swath of reality. Like you
I
have winners, you have like housewives.
think
Yeah.
I think to your point, I think it's a very diverse cast. And this is not the first time we're seeing this like melding of worlds with like House of Villains. And then we have the Traitors. So this is not the first show. It might have been filmed first. I'm not entirely sure, but in terms of like the timeline and production, but it's not the first that we're seeing. So I was very open to it because I felt like there were people I knew and people I didn't know, and a variety of shows. I feel like we're so used to seeing Big Brother and Survivor because it's like the reality shows.
Mhm.
But like seeing Tekla from the challenge, mind you, like he's on like All Stars, he's not on the main show. That was really cool to see, seeing the circle. Even F Boy Island, like that appearance from CJ literally shocked me. So I do feel like we're literally getting everyone from every world. Netflix,
Mhm.
CBS, like NBC, like just everything. Bravo, like they're coming from everywhere. And so initially, I think I liked it, but we'll talk a lot about it a little bit more later. But I feel like that this show is showing us the negative aspects of having people from different reality shows
Mhm.
in terms of a context of a gameplay like this.
Yeah. I also like that in the most simple sense of the word, they all have like at least one person that could be their natural alliance. Like
Mm,
Lawrence B. Hamilton from Love is Blind has Joey, who's also a Netflix person. Like
uh,
Wendell from Survivor has Dave Vaughn from Big Brother, CBS relation. There's like 4 people from Bravo. There's a bachelorette and a bachelor contestant. So like I think that's smart that they did it that way where people are able to find their natural home and
Mm.
stretch.
Oh, for sure. I hadn't even thought about it that way, but that's entirely true. There's someone who can be comfortable with someone else, which is really nice to see. And I do think that it impacts the dynamics of the house and the gameplay that we see in the first 3 episodes.
No. So who caught your eye in the intros that you did not know? For me, Jill really caught my eye because I've never watched Real Housewives, but I find her to be so fascinating, especially after this drop. But she was immediately like a big, fun, poppy character for me.
I think she was definitely a standout for sure. I think she knows who she is and she owns it. I think she's one of like those like reality giants. Like Davon was saying how she's a fan of her. And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, that must be like, respect. Like if someone you like and enjoy on reality TV is like, this is the person that like is insane in reality TV, automatically just earns some type of respect. But I think for me, it was really seeing the Bachelor crew. I
Mhm.
used to watch The Bachelor a lot. I want to say I used to watch like Golden Bachelor era, and I just kind of stopped after a while. And so seeing two people that I was kind of familiar with through like the timeline, but not necessarily them, I was intrigued to see how they would play because if we're being honest, most of this cast has to do with strategy. Like
Mhm.
regardless of what show you're coming from, um, like you see like Survivor strategy, Big Brother strategy, The Circle strategy. Love is not Love is Blind, but I'll say like there is a semblance of even the way the Bravo people maneuver, they have to be
Yeah.
sometimes strategic with their mess. Like they can be messy, but they're very tactical as well. And so I feel like The Bachelor is the most removed from that element of strategy. So I was interested to see how that would go down, especially um with Joe. Because I was like, oh, he just looks like a regular guy.
He's just a normal guy that wants to sit on a couch and have a margarita.
Okay, let's see how he does in the context of this game.
Yeah, I am curious because like I probably watched less than 5 episodes of any version of The Bachelor in my entire life. And I actually really enjoyed Taisha a lot, and I thought that um, Joe's interesting TV. Um, it just, yeah, it's like very fascinating seeing people like that where they're so far removed, and then people like Alyssa Edwards, who in their social strategy game was more of a competition game where it's just one. It's not even like you're against people. You are against people, but you're not like against them like in Survivor or Big Brother.
I will say for Drag Race, I do feel like Drag Race is like the drag version of Big Brother, especially in these like contexts of like the all-star seasons where you can vote for people and like
Mhm.
eliminate them. So I feel like there is that level, right? But I think what Alyssa Edwards gets to hide behind is the fact that it's drag, it's camp, like oh I'm just a personality, I'm giving you drag, I'm giving you entertainment, I'm giving you fun. But there is a level of strategy in Drag Race in general and all the franchises, and a lot of these queens discuss that during Roscoe's, which is like the Drag Race like viewing party area club that people go to, and they have
Mhm.
these discussions, right? Which is why I'm also very surprised by how Alyssa Edwards is treating this game, because it's not what I expected, truly.
Not at all. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about that, especially when we get to episode 3, because she's very big there in episode 3.
Mhm.
Um, Also, we should bring up right now one of the most silly aspects of the game that's only in the first episode. The Wendell's survivor count. He says
Oh,
survivor like 10 times in the first episode, and you see ding, ding, ding. And it's so weird because he's not the only person that's like on my show, but they keep dogging him so hard in this first episode. I find it funny, but it's also like, man.
I think the survivor count is kind of tells you a little bit more of how they're gonna paint Wendell, in my opinion. I feel
Okay.
like there's a lot of like, I'm an expert, I'm a pro because I've played Survivor. Like Survivor has such a connotation behind it because it's like you're in the wild, struggling for X amount of days, depending on if you're new era or old era. You're fighting and you're there aren't truly any true alliances. Like, you kind of are playing for yourself. There's this new era, this idea of voting blocks and stuff like that. You can have alliances, but ultimately, because he is from Survivor, I think people are going to look at him a little bit more differently than others, because Survivor, in its name alone, you are the sole survivor. That is something that will paint a target behind your back. And I do think, Wendell kind of just being like, Survivor, Survivor, Survivor. I thought that was very funny, but I felt
Yeah.
like it was also indicative of like maybe how he seems like he's leading the house, and because of the show he's on and because it's Survivor, like I don't think saying Vanderpump Rules in comparison to Survivor is like, like, who are you gonna go for strategy? Survivor, Vanderpump Rules. I'm gonna go Survivor. Not to say that Kirsten that isn't a valid strategic mastermind, because Miss Mama is a mastermind. If y'all are watching The Valley right now, y'all would know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I get the Survivor count, but it kind of gave me the vibes that he was like, oh, I'm like that guy because I'm from Survivor.
It could be. I mean, like you did bring up a good point there with the idea of this could be indicative of his edit, like kind of a little bit of like a goof by accident. Like he definitely uses things for strategy, which we'll talk about that shortly. Um, yeah. How do you feel about like Daniel Tosh doing confessionals also like immediately in the episode? Like you get a confessional with everyone walking in, and then Daniel Tosh sits down and he's like, "Oh, I don't have to do this, but I still want to do this."
I think it's very, again, for me, it's not the format of reality TV I'm
Hmm.
used to. So it's very like, it almost feels like you're breaking the fourth wall. Like a confessional is talking directly to the audience, but it
Yeah.
feels like when you're like the host who isn't necessarily competing, but you're like having these confessionals, it's a little strange. Like Nick Lachey is not on Love is Blind with a confessional. You know what I mean? No one
Only
wants to
when
hear
they change
Lachey or
locations, though.
Vanessa Lachey talk to the camera. So it's not that it's not welcomed. It's just very strange for me. And
Mhm.
so I was just like, okay, like again, it's about like that adjusting and getting used to. And like once you get to that episode 3, you're so used to it that it's like, okay, like whatever, like who cares? But it's definitely a choice. And it's a choice that's setting them apart. Whether everyone is enjoying it, that's debatable. But I think there's just so much heat going on that it like doesn't almost it almost like doesn't even matter, because it's like okay next, like it's like one of those like transition slots, when like Survivor will show you animals, or like Big Brother will show you shots of the house. It just feels like Tosh is like a transition, and I'm like, okay, next, like let's get into the tea.
Yeah. So everyone gets there. Joey's like so happy seeing everyone. He's super excited to see Tosh. Tosh introduces the game. He's like, you win $200,000, which is a life changing money if you have only 4 months left to live. Saying the expectations of the show for everyone. And then they go to their first goat challenge, which is basically like the HOH challenge in a weird way, I would say, because they're safe for the week if they win. And at this point, they get to decide teams afterwards.
Mhm.
This week is a Survivor themed week. So they are standing on a pedestal, one leg off the ground. They have a, a, a plate with a coconut and they have to stand on one leg and not fall. And
Mhm.
you see some people fall very fast, like Tech, who I was shocked fell so fast because
Yeah.
his challenge history. Like, yeah, he fell like immediately, right? He was like 3 seconds on there.
I was really surprised, because I just felt like naturally people who come from like the challenge or like Survivor or background in those would
Yeah,
do fairly well in those competitions. And to see like him fall off first, like Jill was so expected, like her falling off second, I was like, okay, like
yeah.
we knew. But like Dave Vaughn also surprised me. I was like, oh, third? We're falling third? Okay. So I was definitely surprised.
And then like it's like the people you would expect to last a decent amount of time are the ones that last a decent amount of time.
Mhm.
Wendell he throws the challenge at 10 minutes in. I think that's a smart idea personally, like if we're talking strategy. But that's also like if people know strategy. But also I think it's I don't know, it didn't bite him in the ass. Throwing the challenge while there are two other people up there, which the last two were Taisha and Justin slash Alyssa. And Justin, Alyssa, and Taisha lasted like 20 minutes. which is really
Yeah,
impressive.
for sure. I honestly, to the point about Wendell throwing it, I think in a game where half of the cast doesn't know strategy or isn't familiar, I'll say familiar.
Yeah.
Um, they kind of grasp at anything, right? Like, someone who's rubbing me the wrong way automatically becomes a target naturally. Someone who's over competing looks like a target naturally. And so Wendell, in my opinion, already has the title of Soul Survivor winner. Adding the fact that he's the GOAT, well, that just puts a bigger target on your back. That's not necessary. Do I think other people would have looked at that entirely like, oh my God, because he won, he needs to be targeted next? I'm not entirely sure because I don't think that's where their heads were at, but I think it could have been used against him eventually. And so I do think that was a smart move. But I feel
Yeah.
like if you're going to play a competition show the first week, maybe not. Like I feel like people who are in power the first week are the ones who have the most to lose.
Mm. Which, yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. Um, yeah, like, so after 21 and a half minutes, Justin falls, and Taisha, wearing silk out of all things, wins. I can't even imagine balancing wearing anything that she was wearing. I'm like, good job on her. Like, wow.
Definitely. I was like, shout out to her. Like, I love when a woman wins. I'm not gonna lie.
Uh-huh.
Especially a black woman, you just automatically root for them. Like, okay, she's like repping. I was a little concerned for her because again, when you win first week, you haven't the power and you can kind of dictate where the game goes because it's like a blank canvas. This first season is very much fresh. So there is no technical rules. So
Mhm.
the strategy that is in play those first few weeks can very much dictate how this game should be played because there is no previous season before that. And so this is where I think that's an advantage, but also again it's like now you're a target because you won, right? So if you don't make those social relationships to like place yourself while you're in power, it could come back to bite you. So I was excited. I had to give her props because I know for sure I was not going to make it that long. So shout out to her for winning that first GOAT competition.
Literally, me on one leg for any amount of time. It's probably like a minute tops.
No.
20
Really
minutes on a
dancer?
pedestal. Oh my god.
No.
Balancing the like on that plate. Oh my god. But like it was also like the way the show is edited together with like the reaction shots. You see Tosh drinking out of the coconut, stuff like that. It's like a good, fun, silly energy intro to the show.
Mhm. For sure.
So they all go inside, and everyone's immediately drawn to Davon, which makes me very happy because like she's those people that you want to see play a long time. Like she's a good player, and
Mhm.
people are drawn to her as a person, which is great.
I thought her approach was very interesting. From the jump, she kind of just states like, "I'm here for strategy. I'm here to win. No more niceties." And I think this is very important if you know Davon's reality TV journey, right? Because she has played 3 seasons of Big Brother, I believe 2 seasons of The Challenge, if not
Mhm.
3. And the first season, she went out very early. And the second season, she put trust in Nicole, and Nicole did her dirty. And she did the same thing the following third season with All Stars, and Nicole did her dirty. Davon has been a very kind player, a smart player, but a very kind player. And I think people have used that and like manipulated that. And I think something is similar of the sorts in the challenge, right? I think she's very underestimated, and stuff like that. And so I think this season, this is why we see her with this mindset, and I think this is why we'll see the gameplay that we see her do in the following episodes or for the rest of the season because I think she has played the game with her heart on the sleeve. And while it has very much given her the platform that she rightfully deserves, it has let other players in these games that she is like kind of just take advantage of her. And
Mhm.
so I was excited to hear that she was like, you know what? It's not about the friendships for me. It's about getting this bag, winning this game. I was excited. I was that to me is the attitude you're supposed to have when you're playing on a competition show like this.
Exactly. Which I think a lot of the cast did not realize that that's a thing until about halfway through episode 2, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it's a vibes cast. Like that's what it is. Like Jason Smith, he's great TV, but he's not gonna like win a tug of war.
Oh, for sure. Like, I'm sorry, the fact that we have someone from Holiday Baking Championship, I believe, I'm blanking on the
Yes,
name,
yeah.
something along those lines. To me, it's like, again, great mix, different vast of reality TV, hitting different markets and targets,
Mhm.
but different mindsets into the game. Like, someone who comes from 90 Day Fiance is not going to play like someone who's coming from The Circle. Someone from Love is Blind is not going to play like someone who's coming from Survivor. And so I think their mindset coming into it is very like, oh my God, vibes. And we kind of see that, throughout the day until the next challenge, where we kind of see that competition side. But
Uh-huh.
again, I don't think people are seeing what's at stake, what's in play, because it's just such a vibe house.
And like we do see 3 alliances forming during here,
Mhm.
and this is like all people drawn in networks. Like we have the Bravo alliance, which is Reza, Jill, Kristen. I believe that was it for that one. We have like Taisha and Joe bonding. We also the most important one, in my personal opinion, which is definitely coloring the season to a certain extent, is the Wendell and Davon being like, I got you. That's it. And I do believe, for the most part, that's holding up. Still after episode 3, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Interesting. I also like the alliance with like I think it gets formed a little bit later, but the alliance with Netflix plus CJ from F Boy Island.
Yeah, the
That
Netflix
those
Max
three,
alliance, the
yeah, like
trifecta,
the
which gets a
trifecta,
name later.
which, goodness, gets formed as well. And so we're kind of seeing these alliances form. But quite honestly, I don't know if these alliances were really that serious, knowing what we know with this batch of episodes. So I can't wait to get into it
Oh,
later.
it's so exciting. Yeah, let's talk about that first team challenge.
Mhm.
Did I write down the name? No, I did not write down the name of the challenge, but we get Pirate Jack Tosh. That's why I called it that costume, because it's a very high-end Pirate Jack Sparrow-like costume. The costuming
Mhm.
budget for Dale Tosh is very funny to me. So Taisha chooses her team. She uses Justin, Tech, Davon, CJ, and Joe and Reza, and they're going to be Team Purple. Team Orange is everyone else, just Lauren, Jill, Paola, Joey, Kristen, Jason, and Wendell.
Mhm.
And this is a cool challenge. They have 20 minutes where they have to build a boat out of supplies that are given to them, and half of their bodies must fit on the boat of the swimmers, which will only be 3 of the people of like the 6-person of the 7-person teams, and 1 person is the keymaster and has to deal with like 30 keys at the end of the challenge.
Mhm.
And I think this is like one of the interesting challenges, because obviously like Wendell takes charge because he does know how to build things, and people are listening to him because he is a winner of a reality show, and he is a good leader because like that's just, I mean, he builds things. Like he's building a hotel right now. Like he's so like he knows what he's doing when it comes to this type of challenge. And he basically, one of the teams, which I believe was Team Purple, they decide to just build the actual raft. Wendell's team, they build a decoy raft and a small raft. That, yeah, I think that's all you really need to know for that part, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight the importance of understanding the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he said build a raft, first of all, we didn't see what the equipment would be. So I'm like, oh, like they're really gonna build this raft, try to get 50% of their body and all that stuff. And then we actually see the material as they're building it, and I'm like, how are they supposed to get 50% of their body on these strange materials? Like there was nothing, in my opinion. Like there are some like water related items. We have like a empty water cooler
Pool
jug.
floaties.
And we have some pool floaties, but they're very minuscule. Like I was just like, how do they expect them to do this? But I was like, okay, 50%. That's all I kept thinking in my mind, 50%. Honestly, if you have 2 people, on a proper raft and you have one swimming, that's, that means 50%. So I was very interested to see, how they would do that. And so hearing Wendell's strategy of making a decoy raft, in my mind, I'm like, why are you wasting your time? Like, you need to have 50%. And it's not like the most tiny people on their team. It's like, there's some big people on the team. Like, Wendell's one of them. Like, so 50% is a lot, right? And so I was like, why are you wasting your time making this decoy raft? I didn't understand that strategy at all, to be quite honest, because who cares what the other team is doing? You have different team members, different body types. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, why are we wasting our energy creating a decoy raft? It made absolutely no sense to me. And so to see that their decoy raft was the bigger raft was also very insane to me. I'm like, oh, the 3 pool noodles and some tape? That's your raft that's gonna carry 50% of your team? 3 of you, 50%? I was like, oh, so we're a little delusional. I was like, oh, so we suffer from delusionalism on here. Got it. And I thought it was a very much a strange technique and very not useful.
I agree. I totally agree. I like when you see that raft, like at most 30% of each person is gonna be on there, and like those aren't small people. Like I think Joey's my height. I'm 6'1", and Wendell's a little bit taller than me. He's 6'2". Kristen
Yeah.
did not look like a small human being. Like she's like 5'10". Like those are, and that raft is probably 2 feet of noodles, maybe.
Like, I just didn't understand it, like it logistically made no sense to me. And I was glad that the other team was like not paying attention to what they were doing in their
Yeah,
nonsense. Um, it just shows you like someone who not don't put your eggs in all in one basket, and that team believed in Wendell. They truly had 100% faith in that strategy. And in my mind, I'm like, hello, did you guys forget the 50% rule? Like, I think they just had so much blinded trust in this survivor guy, the guy who's played
yeah.
survivor at Survivor Week. And I think that ultimately is what led to their demise, because despite reaching there and getting the keys first, they ultimately lose because they don't respect the rules.
Reza's pissed. I don't think I've ever seen someone get that pissed off in a competition reality show. Like even 2 weeks ago, Survivor with Liz like snapping about the Applebee's, which I fully get. Reza was like, "That's not fair. We should not have lost. That's not fair." Reza like went off, and like I get it. It was just like it's so fascinating because like during this episode, you realize that Reza was like traumatized by his experience in Trace being like the first one out, and like
Yeah.
it definitely shows in how he comes at this game, how that game affected him.
Yeah, I thought I can understand wanting it. And honestly, you can tell that this group is immediately competitive.
Mhm.
Every single person, despite their show, they have a spirit of competitiveness. And so, to see Purple Team being like, they ain't do 50%. Where was that 50%? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I too would have said something. I would have been like, where's that 50%? That barely fits my arm. How is it 50%? Like I call. Like I understand the call and why they did what they did. I too would have done that. But that's why in my mind, I'm like, if you guys wanted to win so badly, Reza, if you wanted to stay so badly, why would you not have clicked in that 50% rule? Like, this to me is like parallels with Deal or No Deal Island for those who have been
Yes,
watching. I'm not going to
100%.
spoil it for you, but someone does not listen to the rules and it definitely costs them their game. And I just feel like if you're on a show, the simple thing to do is to listen to instructions. Raise your hand if you have questions. If you're confused, ask. And I just feel like maybe they were just so much in the vibes and like really getting situated that it might have like flew over their head. But it just shows you like the importance of listening to the rules and being very strategic with the decisions you make. And I think this is the first time we see how people don't play that into consideration. But episode 3 is definitely a place where if you had listened to the rules, you could have used it to your advantage. And I just feel like people are just vibing.
Yeah. So yeah, Orange team does come in first, but they lose the challenge, understandably so. And like so one of them is going to go home. One of them is up for elimination. Purple team is safe, and they like quickly have a quick little talk afterwards. Wendell apologizes. Not one person is upset at Wendell for doing that. And that also shows you the strategy of how these people are playing too, where it's like, it's definitely a vibe. It's game at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely don't take things seriously. I'm not gonna lie, I would have been pissed. And like I'm talking about Liz pissed if like with that strategy and I could almost go home. To me, no offense to Wendell, that merits grounds of like you should be in trouble. You should be really up for elimination because you were the lead. You were the face. It was your strategy. And this is why sometimes being front and center and being the lead can bite you in the butt. Obviously, we'll see how that plays off. But I personally, if I was on the orange team, I'm taking any excuse, Sandra Diaz style, anybody but me. And Wendell would have been the perfect person to throw on. He's survivor, he's strong, he's a good competitor, and he cost us the challenge. But again, because everyone is off the vibes, we can see that people aren't necessarily tapped into that mindset and how they move forward with the level of strategy after we find out who's at risk.
And yeah, I mean, it's definitely when I was watching this for the first time, I was like, oh, Wendell's screwed. Wendell's going home. That's why he's getting this clown at it. Like with the whole I'm not even like going to like the confessional about his family or anything like that. That's not happening right now. But like the survivor count, that I'm like, oh no, Wendell's fucked. And then like immediately we realized, no, it seems to be it's only Jason possibly because he might be weak, or Joey because he might be strong. Like no one knows how to vote out. If they should vote someone weak out, they should vote someone strong out. They just know that they need to vote someone out. They don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that the targets we had two spectrums in terms of like reasoning for those targets.
Yeah.
But we definitely see that those who are tapped into the strategy are more towards leaning to target these bigger players, these stronger players. Whereas people I think who are off the vibes are really going off of personality, you know, who they connect with, initial bonds. And that's why Jason is in trouble, which is why I thought it was very interesting about how Devon played this and really told Jason, like, hey, you're in trouble. Like, I need you to start, you know, getting into the game. Whereas like Joey was kind of vibing and flirting with Tanisha. Like
that was the funniest thing. That like vibe counter, like the flirt counter, and it's like 3, 2, 1, and you see that twinkle in his eyes, and she's like, "Oh, he's flirting."
You know, as someone who has been flirted with before, and who has done some flirting, I definitely related to Tanisha in this conversation. Like I was like, "Oh, are you flirting with her?" Like it felt very much like, you know, you're a good person, you're very strong, like to me it just felt like friend vibes, and the fact that he thought he was like spitting game was crazy to me, which is why I think Tanisha was like, okay, like you know, like there was nothing of substance or of value when he should have just been more in the strategy mindset, especially talking to her because she is the GOAT. She has power.
It does almost save him though. It comes so close. If it was not a tie, it would have saved him.
Well, yeah, that's the thing though. I feel like when you are someone who comes from a more strategic background, and Joey doesn't have numbers. Like if we look at this cast, right? Like if we break it down, there's the Bravo people, which is Vanderpump Rules, Subs of Sunset, and then like Jill
Real
from
Housewives.
Real
Yeah.
Housewives, and there was another one from Bravo. I don't know if it was 98 Fiance or something. I could be blanking, but there was another one.
Fiance is TLC, I think. I'm not positive.
Okay, so anyways, at least 3, right? Joey, you have Lauren, but that's not enough, you know? Like you need to, for someone who's coming off a strategy show, you need to give me strategy. And I think this is ultimately what costs his demise, because the one person who's really tapped into the strategy, Devon, you know, she's like, Jason is a number for me. Y'all can get rid of Jason, but it doesn't benefit me. And so she starts rallying the troops. She starts encouraging Jason to play the game. And that's why ultimately we get that close vote. And I think because Jason was in that fight or flight mode, unlike Joey, when we have this conversation with the tiebreak, we see how he like really chooses to fight, whereas I feel like Joey was like there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it just shows you how this cast is playing. And like again, while the scramble's happening, you see Daniel Tosh walk right by in a bathrobe, grab food from the fridge.
Again, very strange. It really did take me like I was like, oh, like very much breaking the fourth wall for me. Like
Yeah.
the host just kind of like being in and out. It was like, oh, okay, this is a little strange, but I'll get used to it.
Yeah. I also love like so we get to like after all that, but like Davon is talking about like how she wants to keep Jason, and people are definitely like leaning towards keeping Jason. And then we get to the voting mechanism, which is such a perfect thing for the weirdness of the show. It's a giant goat where it lights up on the inside. It's a gold goat like our logo, where you write down the person's name on the ballot, and then you throw it in. I think you also whisper. You can whisper in, and it goes in the mouth, and then Daniel collects them all from the back end and counts the votes.
Again, the show is very camp, and it's just not something I'm familiar with. So I was just like, oh, that's how we're voting. I'm so used to like a confessional, people like talking their shit, like be like, oh, this is why I'm voting you out. And so to have someone whisper in a goat's mouth was very strange. Very and then to see that he was pulling out the names from the butt, I was like, okay. I think at that point I had kind of realized that like this is a strange show. Like this is
it was in a basket. It wasn't like it was pulled. It collected in a basket.
You know what it's like like digestive system. Like what goes in must come out. Like very much that. So I was like, okay, a strange voting mechanism, but I was excited. I was excited to see what the results would be.
Yeah,
because I felt like I could feel the tension of what this was going to be. Like what was this vote going to be after all that? Like it almost was like, is there going to be a blindside? Because Joey's kind of been chilling. I don't know if he really knows he's at risk. So I was excited.
Yeah. And like we get to take the pool for the nighttime voting reveal. Taisha has like she's in a goat chair, like the goat chair, which has like fur on it. And it's like really kind of cool and
very
elaborate.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, minus the swords, but yeah. Definitely a throne for sure. And like the votes come out and it's 7-7, Joey and Jason. And as the goat, she has to decide who she's going to eliminate. And Jason's like, take out, like, keep me, you can beat me at the end. And Joey's just like batting his eyelashes at her, being like, this is fun, let's have fun. And she changes her vote because she does say originally she did vote for Jason to go home, but she realized Jason's a better number for her in the game than out of the game. So Joey gets sent home first, which I think is sad because he's like one of the more interesting marquee players that has done a social strategy game, but also Jason's amazing television. Oh man.
For sure. I thought this was an interesting move from her because as we know, she originally votes for Jason to go. So for her to switch, one, I think it set the tone because as I mentioned, this game was very much a blank canvas. There was no necessarily a strategy to play. It's a very much learn as you go. And so for her to be like, I'm actually changing my mind and choosing to pick you because you're a strong player, that to me set the tone that if you're a strong player, you need to worry. It's not about, taking the people who are your allies per se, or who can work with you. It's who you think you can beat. And we don't really know what this finale setup will look like entirely. And so I was like, okay, so this is a decision we're making. And so now these strong players, these more, I don't want to say physical players, but maybe those who are more on like the strategic competition side of reality need to worry, i.e. a Wendell, a Davon, even Justin, who did very well on that second challenge. And she just won the GOAT. So she won a competition. She has something under her belt. So I was like, okay, you're choosing to target a strong player, but that also puts a target on your back, especially since you flipped your vote and people were counting on you. And we see that with CJ's reaction.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about the first episode before moving to episode 2?
I thought it was very like episode 1 was very interesting overall, and I think it kind of just demonstrated like who's playing the game and who's not. And I think episode 2 also, with Joey going on home and seeing like a key player because he was very much in the house, it just felt like it might be a reset for the
Mm,
alliances, especially for the trifecta who had Lauren and CJ, because they lost one of their three. So I was really interested to see how a huge presence like Joey going out first will impact the rest of the game moving forward with this weird blank canvas that's
yeah.
starting to take form.
I do love that, like, they aren't named anything until they're called the trifecta at the top of episode 2 by CJ, and that's after Joey's gone. It's like, how can you have a trifecta with just 2 people? And then they're like, quadfecta! And like,
It was ridiculous. I thought it was so silly, and I was like, okay, well, like we'll see how this goes. But I was very excited about the potential. Like episode 1, it was released on YouTube first.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I see what the show is. I still have a lot of question marks, but let's see what they give us these next 2 episodes. And I don't think we were disappointed at all.
No, because at the top of episode 2, I think Paola, like, woke up and realized what she needs to do in this game. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's very weird. I thought about this. It's like, would I rather watch Banu learn how to play Survivor or Paola learn how to play a competition game? And watching her learn to play a competition game is so much more fascinating because she immediately pitches an all-girl alliance, which in theory is good, but we all know in practice is always dangerous because there's always a weak link and it always falls apart. And Devon Cat is like, yeah, sure, but like in the confessional, she's like, this isn't gonna work out.
Mhm. For sure. It's very interesting how like episode 2 works out because I think Joey leaving first was kind of like the wake up call for a few people to be like, "Okay, we're playing the game." And while this wake up call does happen for most of them, I don't think it really settles with them until the end of episode
Mhm.
2 and then episode 3 as well.
Oh god, I cannot wait for this drop this week. So yeah, like CJ doesn't take lying well as a person. She's kind of convinced that Taisha's lying, but
Mhm.
Taisha's like being fully honest. Um, yeah, they go downstairs. Daniel asks if anyone pushed Joey's bed to make it be like one giant bed, and Tech's like, no, that's bad juju. I don't do that.
I
And I'm like,
You don't touch someone's bed. If they're gone, you don't touch it.
yep, this is why
Very
I've been a
much the
fan of Tech Homes
challenge.
for so long. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was saying it's very much the challenge energy, very much that, like, that's something that they do in the challenge, but not necessarily in other games. Like in Big Brother, you can't not sleep in the bed that someone left in when there's like 16 people, you know?
Yeah. It's just like I've always loved Tech. Like I remember watching him on Real World Hawaii as a kid and be like, that guy's cool. I want to be like him. And
Mm.
he's always been exactly what he is, and it makes me very happy. He's just like, nah, dude, that's not cool. Don't do that. So we find out that this week is gonna be a Bravo themed challenge, and the cast is like so excited and weirdly excited about this. Um, and then we get to our goat challenge, which oh wait, I want to talk about the dancing quickly. They all dance. They all like doing a line dance before they do the goat
Yeah.
challenge, and
It,
like it's just like what is happening? They're all best friends, and yet they might be.
I mean, it definitely reminded me of Big Brother Canada season 11. They used to
Okay.
do group dances. Like this guy named Hope was like, I think he was like big on TikTok or something, but he really made them like do dances together, and that reminded me of that. Or like it reminded me of Big Brother US season I want to say 23, 24. I'm blanking with the cookout. Because they
23.
used to sing and dance a lot, and it gave me very much camaraderie. And I was looking specifically at Devon because I was like, she's saying that she wants to take the game very much more strategic, but she looked like she was having a time. And so I was just like, a lot of these people come into these games, like these competition shows, and they're like, I'm not here to make friends. But it's hard to do that when you're spending 24 hours in a day with people, you just create those bonds. And I think that was a cute little moment
Yeah.
where you see those bonds. But I do think that I think people who are playing a little bit more strategic can separate those moments from the game and others can't. So I
Yeah.
think that's what creates these weird tensions later on.
So we get to like it was just a cool 10-second long thing where I'm like, that's fun. Like also everything that's gonna happen later where it's just like, oh my god, shit's hitting the fan hard. And these people were dancing with each other earlier today. Um,
Mhm.
so we get to our goat challenge, which is called Drag Me Through the Mud. And it's a trivia challenge. And they have their podiums, and then they have like probably 20, 30 feet of a mud pit to like climb through. But like, so basically, if they know the answer, they can just stay at their podium and write it down. If they don't, they have to crawl through the mud pit, and they see one of three answers. Well, they see three answers, and they decide which one they want to put on their little on their board. And yeah, they just get muddy, and hopefully they make it to the next round. Pretty simple knockout trivia challenge.
Who did you think would win, and not necessarily who were you rooting for? Like, did you have like a bet on someone?
Um, I felt like a woman was going to win just because of like that the clear importance of a woman's alliance so early in the game. So I felt like it
Mhm,
was going to be a woman, but like I was just really enjoying. I'm really enjoying this cast a lot and like how they are as people. So I'm just
mhm.
like, I think like as a watcher of the show, I was like in more vibe mode at that point. How about you?
I will say I didn't necessarily have someone who I thought would win, but I definitely was underestimating someone,
Mm.
which kind of really highlighted what happens later on because I think I was in the same mindset as a lot of these other house guests who are competing. I don't know if they're house guests,
They're hurt.
goatees.
They're hurt.
They're heard, I guess, like the group itself, but I think I really underestimated someone for trivia just because how the person who does win ultimately presents themselves. It's not it seems like a lot of vibes and not much going up on here. And that's no shade.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit of shade, but it's just because that's just how they present themselves, even how they talk in confessionals. So I wasn't putting stock in the person who does end up being the
So I love these questions because like they start off like very much exactly how you would imagine they would be, and they take a hard left turn. Like I think the first one was about
the
two real
stadium.
housewives that were on in the show Chicago, and then ended up being about where do the Cubs play? And it's just I love watching everyone be like, oh, I know this, and it's like what? I just love
Yeah,
that hard left turn.
I was shook. I was shook. I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, I felt like I was, like, blindsided, but I think I had an idea, and I wasn't sure until I in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, I would have ran through the mud to see the answers, the 3 answers, and then once I would have seen those 3 answers, I would have been secured because it was one of the ideas,
Yeah,
that I had, but some people chose to, like, be really confident in themselves and not run in the mud, which I thought was very interesting as strategies. But I think ultimately you should have ran in the mud regardless if you unless you were 100% confident. And there are
yeah.
people who are like, "I'm confident in my answer. Like, I'm tired. I don't wanna run in the mud." And I feel like that was such a horrible idea because you never know. Like, you don't know. It's early days. A week 2 GOAT competition setting moment could be very interesting and valuable in comparison to the first one because the tone has kind of been set. Now it's your time to secure your position. So I would have fought for this one unless I was Tanisha because she had just won the previous week.
Yeah. So the first question, the answer was Wrigley Field.
Mhm.
Pau, Reza, and Wendell, which is a huge shock, get out because Wendell, you think he's an athletic guy, and he put down Lambeau, which is where the Packers play, if I'm not mistaken. But
Mhm.
I'm not the biggest sports guy either myself. So the next round is we get the soundbite of the whole season with Justin being, "What in the gay hell is this?" Which I love that. I fucking
Mhm.
love Alyssa Edwards so much. um, this was the Lady Gaga was the answer, and a couple people thought it was Cardi B, including Tech, who's a DJ.
Which was
Uh,
crazy.
yeah,
I was like,
uh,
"Girl, Don't Know Rain on Me," the song of the summer for like a insane. It was like the song during the pandemic. Like they were wearing masks. Like we were locked down. I was so surprised that people
yeah.
didn't know that Amber Rain chose Cardi B.
Honestly, like the next question is like was the hardest one to me. The Princess Diana one where who danced with her at the White House. When it ended up being John Travolta, but I was like, it could be Patrick Swayze. And I think like
I
4
thought it
people
was
got out.
Elvis Presley. I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, swing through your hips." Like, obviously, there are 2 different eras. Clearly, trivia is not my strong suit, okay? I'm not one to think that I do, but,
yeah,
when they ran and I saw the 3 answers, I was like, "Oh, it's John Travolta," because I had just remembered Grease, and I was like, he was doing a lot of hip swinging and stuff like that, so that makes sense to me. Whereas Dirty Dancing, I think of the iconic Lift.
yeah. And then like we have the the how many teeth question I think was next, and that only got
Yeah,
Taisha out. And then we get to like the which I think is just the funniest of one of them all, the chess question, where you find out that CJ she gets it correct, and Davon has chess friends, and Daniel's like, "What? Who has chess friends?" And Kristen put down 8 out instead of 16. And she's like, I got it right, but only for half the board. And
I did the
it's just so
same.
funny how much chess has been a part of the show from that one question, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Like I like to compete from the comfort of my sofa in these shows in general when I can. And so these trivia questions, I was obviously competing in my head. And so I was doing the math from like I was because they asked for pawns and I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So then I looked at the second row and I calculated, there's 2 rooks, 2 whatever, whatever knights, 2. So I did the math and I was like, oh, there's 8. Like I was like, I would put 8. I can't believe there's like 14 on the board. Why would they put 14? Like I was talking my shit. And then all of a sudden I see that the answer is 16. And I'm like, oh, we're supposed to multiply it by 2 because there's
yeah.
2 sides. So I was like, "Oh, I was talking all that shit and I was wrong as well." Like when Carson had the answer, I'm like, "Carson just won. She's so good." Da, da, da. And I was like, "Oh, I was wrong."
like I would have actually probably put 14 because my brain couldn't remember if it was a 7 across or 8 across.
Mm.
But yeah. Regardless, unexpectedly, CJ from F Boy Island is the GOAT in a trivia challenge, which good for her, you know?
Oh, for sure. I think it was very interesting and we can talk about it a little bit more, but CJ seems like one of these like front runners for the show. I don't know if it's the edit, but the first episode we kind of talk about her in this alliance, right?
Uh-huh.
And she kind of I'm curious how many confessionals she got in comparison to everyone else. Um, but they're setting her up a lot, especially towards the end of episode 1. Then episode 2 begins, we have CJ feeling kind of some type of way towards Tanisha. We see the conversation about a girls' alliance and for her to win the go. And we'll talk about the rest, but she definitely seems like one of the characters that we're almost getting pushed to like see constantly. And I think it's an edit. And I don't know if it's a winner's edit per se, but I do think that CJ's here for the long run.
I think I could definitely see her being there for the whole season or most of it from what we've seen so far.
Hmm.
Because she definitely is quite present for all 3 episodes, you know?
Absolutely.
Um, and we get like this really great confessional where Justin's like, I need to talk to her because I haven't really talked to her much. And I think that was great to see because they have this really beautiful talk where Justin starts talking about the challenges of his life, and like how hard it was to grow up in the South as a gay man and do drag and stuff like that. And they really connect on this really beautiful cellular level that like really pays off in the next episode for sure.
Yeah, I think that conversation kind of just shows how CJ's playing this game. I think it was fairly obvious from episode 1, but she's very much playing with her heart and her feelings. And I'm not saying there's no strategy in her gameplay per se, but for that conversation with Justin, and I think it's just bonding with someone and connecting. And maybe CJ's story is somewhat similar. We don't know. We don't really talk about her as a person. She almost is like
Yeah.
a caricature, like this
Mhm.
like cartoon-ish version of who CJ is deep down inside. And so we see how that connection or that conversation or the beginnings of that conversation lead to a strong compatibility between the 2 of them and a a friendship between the 2, which I think really drives the decisions she does, um, in this episode and then the following episodes as well.
I also want to talk about before we get to the actual challenge. like the 3 or 4 minutes they dedicated to Jill with Passover. I thought it was like really cool seeing people from all those different backgrounds come together. Tech with his fly ass lavender yarmulke. And like how cool it was. Like Rez is like, I'm part Jewish, so I know a little bit, but like don't put me in too much charge. And like how everyone was just having a good time, like singing Dayenu. Like, I don't know, I'm Jewish, I don't really talk about that much. Like I'm more spiritual than anything, but like it was cool seeing people come together like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think as much as I love the strategy and the gameplay and the logic behind reality shows, I think there is the beautiful aspect of reality TV, which is the human aspect of it. And a lot of the times, it's not necessarily why I like tap into these shows per se, but I find it endearing and I find it beautiful to have these moments where you're sharing culture, you're sharing um, these moments together. I'm from like Toronto and the Toronto area. I'm not going to say Toronto the city. And we have a lot of cultures here, and I've always loved to learn from others and also share my culture as well. And that's a privilege that I have always enjoyed getting the opportunity to do. And so having these moments on TV like that shows the human side of these people that maybe some people aren't familiar with, right? People don't know Wendell the person. They know Wendell the strategy, you know. Devon, we've
Yeah.
seen her personality a little bit more because she's been on so many shows and hopefully many more to come. I am not against it, but you know, someone who is like more like Kirsten, who is on Vanderpump Rules, where it's really about the personalities in your day-to-day life, we get to see her personality a little bit more, right? So it was a nice moment to open a window to maybe seeing a softer moment of humanity that we don't see often.
Yeah. It was just like cool just seeing that for like 3 minutes. Like we're a family, we're all together. Let's enjoy this night off. Joe's gonna drink afterwards because that's what he does.
Yeah.
Um, and then we get to our immunity challenge. And Tosh is dressed like Lisa Renna.
Yes.
And Jill thinks that Tosh is dressed like her, which I actually see that actually, you know? Like it's kind of like Jill Zarin drag.
I mean, Jill, you know what? I too like to push my ego sometimes. So if you feel compelled and that it's gonna make you feel good about yourself, that that look of Tosh reminds you of you, then by all means, sister, live your truth. I was like, you know, I don't see it, but I see Lisa Renna, and I don't know how Lisa Renna feels about that. That I don't know if I want to say like cosplay. I don't know how I want to define that, but it was definitely something.
It adds more flavor to this very flavorful stew of a show. Uh, so we figure out. So CJ picks the teams. She chooses Paola, Justin, Davon, Joe, and Taisha. And then she chooses Kristen to sit out. And Kristen gets to choose what team she wants to back. She chooses the team that has a lot of the Bravo people because it's gonna be a Bravo themed challenge, and I think that makes sense. Also, I feel like the team that she ended up backing is on paper the stronger team for this kind of challenge.
I definitely was surprised that CJ was like, I want to make this balanced so no one can be mad at me. I was like, what? Balanced? I'm trying to win. I'm sorry. Kirsten's not sitting down. She's gonna go on the Bravo team. I'm gonna take Wendell. He's gonna sit down. Like, you know, again, very much how you could just see how people are going about this game differently. Like, I'm sure if that episode, like Wendell was in charge or Devon was in charge, like that was not gonna be the dynamics and the lineup we would have gotten. I
No,
would have put all the strong people on my team unless I was trying to target one person specifically, and then put Kirsten with the people I didn't want to win because she was already in a bad position. But maybe that shows that I lack a little bit of empathy. I don't know. But in a competition show, I'm trying to win. Like, sorry.
yeah. So it's a 3-stage relay race. First stage, um, inspired Real Housewives. They have to fully 100% flip a table from one side all the way back to the other side. Second one is inspired by Vanderpump Rules, where they have to put silverware inside a napkin and like fold it up in the way they're supposed to, and then toss it into a bus tub. And then the last one's inspired by Below Deck, where they have to throw two lifesavers onto a buoy.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a real, like, the way this starts is just so funny because like the costuming is also fun. Like Justin and Reza are like in like sort of like a slight tuxedo vibe for the Real Housewives section. Wendell is like in like boating attire. Was there anything special for Vanderpump? I think just a like a apron, right?
I think they wore like an apron or something, if I'm not mistaken.
But they like clearly spent like 15 minutes trying to fully flip this table. These like crappy patio tables, 100% and completely around. And they also like reset the table to a certain extent after every time. And Wes is like, I'm trying to challenge my girl, Teresa Giudice. And like it's just silly and fun. And like I love how Daniel's like, man, I hate shooting it longer than I have to, but if this goes on for 6 hours, I'm very good with this because it was that funny. Watch him just flip these tables and it gets close and then falls over.
It just showed how absurd the show is. Once again, camp absurdity. Yeah. But I think this is also an issue with what causes so much confusion as to like how seriously are you supposed to take this game, right? Because the challenges are so ridiculous. I'm sorry, flipping a table, mind you, it's not like a plastic table. It's very much like this strange material. And so they're flipping it and all that. Like, I don't know if you've seen that Jeanette McCurdy video of her like trying to pop something recently. She's like, that's how I felt every time I was seeing a table flip. I was like, like stop, like the noises, the banging. I was like, oh, like, is this who we are? Is this what we're doing? Like, okay.
Did you notice how scratched up they were by the end too? Like they were like destroyed.
It was absurd. It like again, it's camp, but I think it causes a contradiction as to what is expected, what people want to see, what they hope this game is. Because, for example, the challenge takes itself too seriously. Too seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, we're the 5th greatest sport. Baby girl, please be serious. No, you're not. And then, like, you know, Big Brother is somewhat serious, but it has these camp tendencies that I personally find can turn me off. And so this show is just so camp, but there's such an element of strategy that I feel like, again, this juxtaposition causes a lot of what I think is the issue with this cast and how they go about this game.
Yeah. I wonder if that would be an issue if they had like 2 or 3 more reality competition players in the game. You know? Like, because the show wants to be camp, and it is camp. And it's fascinating watching people like Pau, Jill, Reza, like learn how to play social strategy games. Some people faster than others, and it's fascinating. Like, because like there's like people like Wendell and Dave who are just like kind of like, well, this is happening. Might as well just do my normal thing.
Yeah, I think, and I think this is maybe the biggest issue with the show is that I think maybe it's trying to almost be satire and almost be like, haha, like these are the reality shows, so let's just like make fun of them a little bit, which is fine. But it's just so, I guess, jarring for what it is versus what it can be versus how people are playing it, which is why I think we have these weird moments or like these moments of tension between certain players, specifically in episode 3, because I think people think it's one thing because of how camp it is and how ridiculous it is, how the host is ridiculous, when at the ultimate end of the day, it's a competition show where you're winning money. So I think that the games, the challenges also really cause this big juxtaposition that causes confusion at times, even for me as a viewer.
Yeah, it's like, again, it feels like the most high stakes live reality game I've ever seen because like the production budget's not much there.
Mhm.
And it's like all very much clearly in a backyard or clearly in a living room or whatever. And the show does not take itself seriously, but the gameplay at this point already is so. I think this is when the gameplay changes because the challenge is like so close. Like Tech is so good at the bus toss thing, and then like Jason like is good too eventually. And once Davon realizes that she should go underhand instead of overhand, it gets really close. And then like at the end, Wendell wins the challenge, screams Kobe. Uh, it's like the show becomes. I think like from the midpoint of this challenge onward is when it becomes a serious but campy show.
Mhm. They're definitely competitive, and I think it gets clocked, especially in episode 3. I think
Yeah,
everything episode 1, episode 2 really leads to what episode 3 is all about. And I think naturally a lot of these people are competitive. Heck, I'm sorry. I'm very competitive. Mark, I don't know about you, but I get very competitive. It could be a game of solitaire, a game of spoons, a game of Uno. It don't matter. Me, myself, and I versus everyone, just a game of me playing with people. It doesn't matter. I'm competitive. So you put me in a setting where I have to compete. I don't care if it's for $1, if it's for nothing. I'm gonna compete. And I feel like
yeah.
naturally all of these people are competitive. So it just I that's where you kind of see these Kobe's, these people cheering other people on, and how naturally when people don't act that way, it causes suspicion.
Mm. So then we get to like the like after the challenge. Taisha doesn't know what to do because there's only two guys on their team, and she likes them both. Like I mean, Joe is like her ride or die, and she gets along really well with Justin. Reza tells Wen that he wants one of the bachelor people, and he points to both Joe and Taisha. And then he goes like, "I want the girl," and it's like there's this really funny edit slow mo where he's like, "I want the girl," but it's like not sleep, like not creepy or anything. It's just like it. It's kind of like that intense. Like Reza like goes from like Reza knows how to play a social strategy game.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think there's his day-to-day life is very he has to be tactical. Like
yeah,
it's a lot of like social game because it might not be in parentheses like this person's show social game, but a lot of it is social dynamics and interactions. A lot of these people, regardless of what show they're on, they need to have people to like them. They need to have people to back their arguments. They need to have receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, the meme itself. So I think you see people like Reza, who's also been on the trader, even if it was for one episode, um, know that you need to set yourself up. And it's surprising that people are in this like competitive headset mindset, but then like they get in and out of it very quickly. But yeah, with Wendell's team winning, you know for the all girls alliance, it's like, oh, most of us are girls here, so we can't vote for each other, so we have to go for Justin, who's well liked. CJ likes Justin's just a character, and Joe, who is Denisha's number one, I would say, at this point, or so we think? Question
I
mark.
mean, for like 2 more minutes of the episode, pretty much. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, like CJ is all aboard on the Girl Alliance, and she wants Joe gone because he looks so bored. And we get this amazing sped up shot of like everyone like living around the house, and Joe's just sitting on like the lounge part of the couch, literally not moving more than like a couple of inches.
Mhm. And this is exactly an example of when it's early and people don't have much to use against you, they'll use anything. And I
Mhm.
think Joe just kind of caught on to what that's like, right? Like the game, I think people think the game starts and ends when the competition is happening, but it never stops. Like people are always gaming. Davon is one of them. She's played Big Brother where
Yeah,
literally the game is 24 hours, 7 days a week. So, I think, when Tanisha comes up to him and is like, yeah, they want to go after you because you don't want to be, it doesn't seem like you want to be here. He's like, come on, like I want to be here, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's like one of those cases where you can't shoot the messenger. It's what you've communicated non-verbally, and they took that and interpreted it as you don't want to be here because you didn't watch out for your body language. And it's a little sad that he had to realize that, oh, like the they'll use anything against me, but
Mhm.
Hello, it's a game. Wake up. Let's play the game.
And like, he actually says like it's bullshit and that everyone's coming for her, and
Mhm.
like, which is crazy because I don't think that happens yet. Like, I think people are still on the Taisha train at this point,
I think
until it gets back to her to the Girl Alliance that she told him about the Girl Alliance.
I think he was like I think Tanisha played this all wrong. I think she's entirely to blame for this mishap, right?
Mhm.
Because instead of pushing Justin and then kind of doing what Davon did the last episode with Jason, she doesn't back him up. If someone's your number one ally, mind you, they were friends before they got here, right? Someone's your number one ally, and in my opinion, she's playing the game as, I need to work with my people and get the strong people out. She should have worked hard to push the target on Justin. Why not Justin? Why is Justin the one we get to protect? Why? I don't feel like she asked the questions why. I don't feel like she campaigned to try to, push this target on Justin, and rather was just like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to fight this battle. I'm going to go to Joe and tell him, like, by the way, like, they're already pushing your name. Sorry, there's nothing I can do. And obviously, Joe's going to feel betrayed because that's his number one ally. And it kind of felt like she was just passive with their relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, like, you know what? Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. And there was entirely something she could do. She could have leveraged her relationships, tried to. And so Joe was like, you're gonna go after me? You're not gonna fight for me? Well, it's looking like it's you or me. And that was the right reaction from Joe because she just won. And she started the narrative of let's go after the strong people. So if you just win a challenge and the narrative so far has been let's go after the strong people, then it just becomes a free ball. And I think that's what leads to her
Yeah.
demise.
And I mean, like, it kind of yada yada, like the actual ceremony part, because it's pretty obvious pretty quickly that Taisha is going to go home, and she goes home 10-3. And you know, we had a very funny thing afterwards with Daniel being like, "I have to leave my wife and kids for her," and then he just like runs over, like he jumps over the wall after her and everything. It's just silly Tosh humor. And then we go back inside and they start discussing the actual vote. And it's Taisha, CJ voted for Joe, and like who else voted to take out Joe? And then like everyone's like, "Oh no, I voted for Taisha." Davon's like, "Oh no, I'm guilty." Like in confessional, but she's like, "I'm not gonna say that." So she's like, "Oh no, I voted for Taisha." And it's just like the chaos that Davon's playing with this game in this game is so fun to watch. And she needs to be on every reality season of every show, I think.
I think it just showed. I think this second half of the episode just demonstrates who's actually playing the game and who's playing with their hearts. And I think people who are playing with their hearts are taking the game personal. And
Mhm.
so when people are thinking, on the strategic side, that's why they might get a little bit offended by the moves, but it's not personal, it's game, right? And so for Taisha, for example, to go and tell Joe about the girls' alliance because she's talking with her heart, she's telling Joe, like, out of the goodness of your heart, hey, it's looking like it's you. It just turns everyone against her. And Davon said it in the beginning of the episode. I would love for an all girls alliance to work out. I truly would. I'm saying this with my heart of hearts. As a woman, I would love to see women's solidarity. But look at the material. We never succeed at the greater mission. Just look at the recent Big Brother Canada season. They came in, the women were like,
Yep.
let's do a girls' alliance. Not even 5 seconds later, Victoria's like, I don't want anyone to snitch that I'm in this girls' alliance to put me at risk. So she does what? She throws one of the girls under the bus to the HOH and just exposes the girls' alliance immediately. And so I understand why Davon in the beginning of the episode is apprehensive. She's like, I don't know if I want to put my eggs in this basket because it never works out. And Tanisha just proves it once again by revealing the girls' alliance, making it a huge target and making all the girls distrust her. Bad move. And I think Davon realized how people are playing with their hearts and a little bit more emotional. And so to cause chaos and distrust, that's why she did the vote. And it's a smart game move because everyone just starts to distrust together and it kind of opens the game again for someone who doesn't care for the chaos and can wrangle the troops to come together and do what needs to be done.
And the episode ends with a confessional from Joe where he's like, I'm just happy to be here, and he's eating a sandwich.
And it was actually really funny. I said that was iconic because you were supposed to go home and you flipped it and you turned it. And now Tanisha, who is your number one ally, who kind of just put you to the side, really got the consequences. So shout out to Joe for that. That was funny.
Yeah. So episode 3, one of the most insane hours of TV that has William Hung in it.
Such good TV.
Oh my God. Like every aspect of this episode is just like chef's kiss, perfect. I'm so excited for episode 4. Let's just start talking about it, right? So like Jill and Kristen, they have a nice convo about playing the game, and they were definitely on the side of like the Paulas, where they're like definitely learning fast on how to play a game. I also feel pretty at this point. It's like when I was like, I feel good about Jill's longevity in the game, and they both want to work with CJ and protect her, which adds to what you were saying about CJ earlier.
Yeah, they talk about how innocent CJ is, like how they want to protect her because she just seems so innocent and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, oh, y'all are trying to protect someone you just met that hasn't promised you any allyship, no nothing, no. I was like, girl, I don't know. CJ's doing something right for someone who just won the GOAT for the week to to have people in the house want to protect them. I thought that was so interesting because Taisha just went home, and one of the selling arguments is that she was just the GOAT. So I don't know if really it was truly her selling of the Girls Alliance or what, but for CJ to come off of just recently being in power and kind of people wanting to protect her, I was like, that's very good gameplay. I don't know if it's done purposely, if it's again people playing with their hearts, but I was like, that's a very good position to come from. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. We get one of those fun Daniel Tosh confessionals where he's like, of course I went out to try to keep Taisha because she has more Instagram followers than anyone else in the cast. And it's like that fun like producer hat that he puts on every once in a while of like what's best for the show is best for me. And like that, like it's fun to get that little like answer why he like was like, I'm gonna leave my wife and kids. And then like he announces what the GOAT challenge is gonna be. Just I love this type of stuff so much. The Untalented Talent Show is just the idea of this is just so brilliant, just you have these people who are some of them are like known as talented human beings and some of them are not. And they have to do a randomly assigned challenge, a talent for them, and they all like just choose it out like a plate. And I just love watching this, like how they're doing this. I'm gonna quickly just say what each person does. Joe gets 80 step aerobics, Ted gets baton twirling, CJ gets Shakespearean monologue, Reza gets limbo, Justin gets poetry, Krista gets cake decorating, Paola gets animal imitations, which has her like screaming like a madwoman when she finds out. Wendell gets stand up, Jason gets singing the Star Spangled Banner, Davon gets juggling, Jill gets breakdancing, and I think that was like the last one they actually showed, right?
Yeah, they saw some other montages of like someone had to sing Star Spangled Banner or whatever your national anthem is. Sorry, I'm Canadian, y'all. So
you're fine. Oh, Canada, I know yours.
Very simple. Oh, and then Canada, our country. Great.
Great. Fine. It just, I love like the disparateness of this talent show of like things like from like 80s aerobic dancing to Shakespearean monologue. It's just the funniest thing in the world to me, like what they have to potentially do.
And that's exactly again why to me it was so strange to like, because I have seen a talent show be done before in a reality competition setting to win. So Claim to Fame did it season 1, if I'm not mistaken,
and 2, right?
I think we did both seasons.
It was definitely 1 for sure. And I think both seasons had it.
because I
Yeah.
think he from her sister did something, but I know for a fact he did it for season 2. Um, and so I've seen that. And again, it just feels like they're doing the complete opposite. Again, satire. And so that's why for me, it's like, it's almost like you have to kind of counteract what's actually happening to play a game of strategy and be strategic. Because they say, you can rate someone, but you can only give, there's a score from 1 to 11,
Mhm.
and you can only rate someone once, one score. So you have to be smart, and elements of strategy. And so people are coming kind of going into it and being like, I have to be the best ever to get these points to secure this win. When in reality, that's not necessarily the case. The case is to get the most amount of points. How you
Mhm.
do that is up to you. I would have been diplomatic. I would have been in my politician era. I would have put on the suit and I would have campaigned. I would have politic something. I would have made sure I went up to the people and say, hey, you got me, I got you. I'll give you a high number. Play it. And I do think perhaps Davon did that because it is kind of insinuated that Davon does this, mainly Davon, but they kind of hint to Kirsten as well. And I think Paula, they had mentioned a few players that it seems like they're not giving high scores to give high scores. So it,
Yeah.
it was very interesting where it feels almost counteractive of like, we're presenting you this mirage of what's happening. But in reality, there's all of this that can actually happen. And this is a strategy. And are you smart enough to tap into it? Yes or no? And there were a few who were.
It's also fascinating when you think about like if you're like Reza, you're at the end, you already basically know your score because it's like whatever score people didn't give.
Exactly. There is a level of strategy that can be played. If you are last, that's the worst position. A lot of the times when you're playing these games, like the challenge, for example, they say you need to go first. It like not you need to go first. It is the worst to go first because
Yeah.
everyone can watch you and learn from you. Whereas in this case, it's actually the worst to go last because some of these people are playing with their hearts. So if they're giving 10 immediately, it's like, oh, you might have pulled something out for them that was giving 10, but because they already gave out their 10 to one person, unfortunately, you have to deal with the remains of what they have. And that's just how the cookie crumbles.
And it's fascinating because like I believe Paolo was number two. I'm not Paolo, Davon was number two. And
Hmm.
she puts on like she has juggling. And she puts on a full performance where Paolo is like attacking her, and she needs to recite the alphabet backwards, and Joe's there. And like by the end, she's actually doing a little bit of a juggle, but it's like it's more about the actual performance aspect of it instead of just the juggling aspect. And she scores an 87, which we will find out is high enough to be the GOAT. But like I think the thing is like to go early and have something that's like good enough where people like have to give a high score.
Hmm.
Like,
For sure.
yeah. Also, we have to talk about the special guest of William Hung. I don't know if you watched American Idol when he was on it or not, uh, but
Not.
yeah, no, I was like in high school, I think, when he was on American Idol, and I remember being, oh my god, this guy is such a terrible singer. So I was like really happy to see him uh, have another few seconds of fame while Daniel Tosh and him are dressed alike.
And a few seconds he did. We'll talk about it, I think, a little bit later, but he definitely left a lasting impression that caused some emotion with some of the house guests, which was clarified on Twitter after the episodes
I didn't
aired.
even notice what I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm really excited to get to that point. I mean,
Okay.
we're almost. So let's talk quickly about some of these performances.
Mhm.
I think Paola's made no sense where she was a cow getting milked. Um, it
Yeah,
was
you know
weird.
what? I can't cast judgment. I was watching it initially and I said, this is a choice. For example, Davon, the juggling. I
Yeah,
personally wouldn't have made that performance because I would have just juggled. I don't know what I would have done. I may have
yeah,
sang or something. I don't know. Because I got a little vocals here and there, but she took it one way. She went creative route, right? Paula being a cow being milked by CJ. Again, very strange to me. Very strange to me. But can I judge? No, because how would I have been that creative? I don't think so. And that's why I have to do. I need to give tens where tens are due. Now, was the act strange? Yes. Does it merit a 10? No. But I have to give tens for the creativity and thinking outside the box. So respect.
yeah.
Respect.
it's like also like Kristen was wearing pasties and doing a Jason impersonation, stuff like
Very
that. Like you
strange.
have to pander sometimes. Like Alyssa's poem was literally telling how great everyone in the house was, while in full on Alyssa Edwards makeup. Like Reza was Reza Reza gave that pole dance pole dance.
Yeah, for something that was supposed to be
A limbo.
limbo, I saw a lot of things that I didn't think I was gonna see personally. Some butt cheeks, some other things. Things were bleeped out, and again, very strange. But can I judge? No. Can
Good
I
for
judge?
him. You know, he's on TV. He's making the money. He's in that cute.
Trying to win.
He's rocking the outfit. You know.
He's just trying to win. He's trying to win as he can, and again, can't cast judgment because would I have done that? No, but I don't think I would have gone a great score like he did. So it was a 7 at most, and shout out to you for doing that.
And he came in second place. He almost won, but Davon won.
Yes.
What do you mind me asking? What did William do that caused? Because I know we're at the end of that challenge. I'm really curious what you caught on
Yeah,
Twitter
for
that I
sure.
missed.
So obviously we saw the strategy that was played. Davon gave Alyssa a 1.
Yeah.
Alyssa did very well, and again that makes sense because Alyssa is known to be an entertainer, a drag superstar. So I would have reserved that one for Alyssa. And based off the look alone, Reza, you were catching that too. It made absolute sense to me why Davon did what she did. It makes strategic sense, and she secured the win. Very intelligent. Now we see a confessional of Reza crying, and so it's insinuated that he's crying over the fact that Davon gave him a 2. Davon's playing the game, blah, blah, blah. She's not playing the game right. So on Twitter, someone had asked Reza, like, were you really crying because Davon gave you 2? And because there was a lot of discourse about Davon's strategy in episode 3. And Reza clarified that apparently, so initially in the initial tweet that Reza tweeted, it almost was implied that he was saying that Davon said something homophobic. But then later on clarified in replies that it was indeed the guest judge who had apparently said something homophobic, which caused him to cry, and it got cut.
Ugh.
So it just caused a lot of discourse because, again, initially it was implied in the tweet that the reason why he was crying is because someone said something homophobic, and it was implying it was Davon, which it wasn't the case. And so he wrote in the replies, instead of deleting the tweet and re-clarifying it, because some people don't always see the replies, some people don't scroll down. Instead of clarifying that, he just wrote a reply and just said, "Oh, it wasn't Davon, it was the guest." That's why I reacted that way. So I thought that was very interesting. And some behind the scenes action, which painted the narrative one way that we'll see later on down in this episode in comparison to what was actually happening. So, I don't know
Thanks for
what was
clarifying.
said,
Yeah,
but
I mean, there's a reason why William Hung hasn't really done anything since 2004.
Yeah.
Regardless, Justin's not happy with the strategy that's happening at this point of the game, and a lot of people are clearly not happy. And I believe it was Justin was talking to CJ Lauren upstairs, and Davon's downstairs, and she hears this happening, and she goes upstairs to join them. And Justin's like, "Yeah, let's talk this out." And right when Davon sits down, Lauren and CJ just walk away. You noticed that, right? Like
Mhm.
that was
I just
that's
thought it was interesting because if I'm Davon and I'm in power, if I am down the stairs and I hear someone talking badly about me,
mhm.
and it's not just the person who's talking bad about you, it's the company they keep. Because
Yeah.
Justin being so comfortable, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong, sometimes you want to vent to your friends. So Justin feeling so comfortable about you know, talking badly about Davon and how Davon plays this game, to me demonstrates a comfortability about, how people view the game, or these people view the game the same, because birds of a feather flock together. So if I'm Davon and I walk up that stairs and I see CJ and Lauren are a part of that conversation, and Justin feels so comfortable, and none of them tried to talk to me afterwards about the fact that they were just discussing me, Justin's not only my target. Lauren can go and CJ can go, because you both clearly feel the same way. So
Yeah. I just saw this comment here
Mhm.
from Earthless Ghetto, where they say, I think Rez is lying. Nobody said anything homophobic or cast members who have said something, which I do believe that. He just didn't want to admit Davon had him crying in a blue wig over a game. I can
Here's
see
the
that.
thing. I can't say that there was or there wasn't something homophobic said, because I wasn't there. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't believe Reza. Not in the sense of like I'm not. Let me rephrase that. I'm not someone who's oh. How can I say this in a way that makes sense? I don't think if I have to believe Reza, that I'm fully putting my trust in him.
Ah,
Like some of the things that I saw preseason before the season went out, where he called Davon a thug, called Davon like someone had called her thug, and someone had said something about being ghetto or something. Just a
yeah,
lot of like insensitive micro, not even micro, macro aggressions towards just aggressions towards
yeah.
Davon. Immediately, anything he says to me, I'm giving it a big old question mark. I'm not entirely sure if I believe it, if I'm buying what he's trying to sell me personally. Maybe I'm not his clientele, but that is what he said on Twitter. So I'm just gonna report what he said. Do I 100% believe it? I don't know, because I wasn't there, but I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if he was lying, because everyone kind of looks like Boo Boo the Fool on Twitter, complaining about the fact that they're playing a game and they're disappointed that someone is actually playing the game. You signed up for the wrong show then. Sorry.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. So that it quickly like devolves into a fight, like within seconds. And I honestly don't get why Justin is handling this fight this way. Like he's done social strategy, he's done strategy games, and like Reza has to calm down Davon, and she tries to quit that night. Like it's the first quit attempt of the episode. There's like 6 people that try to quit. If you like this episode, um,
I don't even want to call it a fight, if we're being real,
okay,
because what genuinely happened was Justin was talking shit, point blank in the period,
yeah,
and Davon walked up, and Davon was like, "Okay, tell me how you feel." And Justin, I guess, spoke. And so when you're having a conversation with two people, someone talks, the other listens, and then the other person should have the right to reply or respond. And I felt as though Justin didn't even want to hear what Davon had to say. He wasn't open to it. He was like, I'm not listening. Bah. He gets up, bah, I'm not listening. And to me, it's like you just spent this whole time spewing something, and she should have the right to respond. Now, again, boundaries are a thing, but don't come at it and like act like you want to have a conversation when you just want to tell someone off and not give them the space to comment. And again, these people don't know each other prior to the show. So Justin may not understand that Davon's experience is why she's playing the way she's playing now. And, I can understand, a little bit of frustration when you feel like you deserve a win. But at that point, I think you should just be like, okay, so this is how we're playing. I need to pivot and play
yeah.
this way. This is the game you're going to play. I'm going to play it better. That's just the mindset I would have personally, instead of taking it personal. And I think Justin took it really personal and didn't even want to engage in a conversation with Davon to even have that space. Because who knows? Like, it could have been a fruitful conversation, but there was no space
There was
given
no
to
space at
actually
all.
have
Yeah.
yeah. So I can't
I
really
mean, and
call
you
it a
bring up a
fight.
good point there with the whole idea of like pivoting, because like I feel like the way Jill came into this game, the way CJ came in, the way Paola came, like they were not thinking like I'm gonna have to go a hard strategy. I'm gonna have to like just like vibe.
Mhm.
And then they realize, oh crap, I have to do a stronger strategy. And you would think that someone has that kind of background in a competition reality show and has been on the streets of reality TV for north of 10 years at this point would have a
Mhm.
little bit of a better understanding of that. I'm really intrigued by what's going to happen in episode 4 after all of this, honestly. Um, but yeah, I agree with exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah, it was just very interesting. And And so when we do see this blow up happen, right? I think I think Davon's maybe a more human side comes out, and she's like, you know what, like I think she kind of steps outside the game for a moment. I think
Uh-huh.
she has a moment where she kind of goes back from this game, and I don't know, like that's really for Davon to clarify. But to me, it seemed like she stepped out of the game for a moment, and she had a really human reaction because it just felt like she was like getting like got at. And again, it's not even about the game anymore. Because I don't think Justin is talking about game. He's not arguing about game. He's arguing about how it's personal within the game. And so now it almost feels like she has to take it internally as personal. Um, and so I understand that moment where she's like, I don't want to do this, right? Because again, maybe it could be related to her previous experiences. And we see Reza kind of, which surprised me with knowing what I saw preseason, him like going to Davon and actually like comforting her, especially since he seemed like someone who was in that same vein or that same sentiment as Justin in terms of like, oh, like you're playing a game, like you're doing too much.
Yeah.
And so I was interested to see. I was shocked to see that Reza went out of his way to like comfort her, but then it just led me to more confusion as to like what happened from this point to like him doing exit or I guess preseason interviews and using the terms he did.
Yeah. So next morning, we're at Girl Lions headquarters. They're all doing their stretches. Devon asks Paula to throw the challenge so she can get Justin out. And Paula doesn't seem too on board with throwing a challenge at first because I really feel like the show is like activates something that in Paula that she did not know was a thing for her.
Mhm.
But like she's like, "You're my alliance. I want to work with you. I'll do it."
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was very interesting because I think people don't think about throwing competitions, whereas it's almost a thing in Big Brother. Like, I was having a conversation with podcast friends, who all gonna be there. Shout out to them. And we were talking about I was talking about how a certain Canadian house guest, Victoria, has not mastered the art of throwing, and how like throwing competitions can actually be a good thing, but you need to do it in a way that's not noticeable and that it's not clockable. And so I thought it was interesting that that element of Big Brother kind of seeped into the goat where it was like you can throw comps because if you throw a comp and you got the numbers, you can genuinely target someone. And that's the first time that we kind of see a glimpse of how this game, the goat, can be played, which is
Mhm.
very interesting. I'm like, oh, you're so right. You can do that. You can. This is an element of strategy that's being introduced, and we're getting another element to this like
Yeah.
blank canvas that's being added. Oh, like you can be strategic with this format. And I thought that was very interesting, their conversation and this internal debate with someone who's not used to this format of reality TV.
I really think Pau is going to be like one of the more interesting players in the season. Honestly, like you see her growth from like s- uh, sweet, very cliche 90 Day Fiance star to like maybe strategic mastermind. We don't know. um, and like so, we get to the part where we find out it's gonna be a disco challenge. Everyone's all discoed out. Wendell's fro is out. Like everyone's got like wigs and such, and it's like a very fun vibe. And Tosh roller skates in and falls, and it's just silly. Again, the way the comedy is balanced in the show is really, really fascinating. Because again, this is an LRG challenge. What we're about to see, they have to spin around a microphone like 10 times, go around an obstacle course, and then get to the end point. That's all they have to do. It's not a hard challenge. It's not like a complicated challenge. It's just a fun vibes challenge.
Mhm.
So Davon chooses her team. She chooses Pau, Jill, Lauren, CJ, and Justin. Lauren and CJ are not in on this plan, so is Justin. But Jill is also in on the plan. And Justin's a little surprised it was picked by her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I um I thought that it was interesting that we saw that Jill was in on the plan, but we didn't
Hmm.
see that conversation had. But it kind of hints to what we saw in episode 1, where Davon was like, "I'm a fan of Jill. I love Jill. I'm not gonna let her know that I love her like that, but I do, and I just want to, get her in." And I love that as someone who's interacted with reality, like
Yeah.
people who've been on the shows. You don't want to seem too much like a fan and like be in their face, but also it's like it's like a mini game. So I totally understood where Davon was coming from, but it just showed that initial first day moment struck a chord, and that they're true allies. We saw it in episode 2, where they really did connect as well, with like the Jason vote being one, and then also episode 2, and kind of being on the same page. So I think Jill is a confirmed Davon ally, and it helps kind of format the alliances, what is actually the dynamics in the house. And so half the team knew what to do, the other half didn't. And if I was Justin, I would be very concerned. I'm surprised that he wasn't more concerned. Y'all just fought the day after. Y'all didn't reconcile. Y'all didn't talk about it the day after and be like, "Hey, we good." There was none of that conversation. So if someone put you on their team, someone you just argued, I think you should be on your P's and Q's. You need to be up. You need to be
Uh-huh.
ready. And I'm surprised that Justin was like, "Oh, it's like harder. It doesn't matter." But again, it just shows that some people are playing the game and some are not.
It's that thing of like, I feel like before the challenge, it's like, okay, maybe this is a like cool, we'll be good. But then like by the end of the challenge, he's like, no, that's not at all. But like, because like the challenge is closer than you would think it would be. Like Tech fucks up. He like he tries to spin one way and then spin the other way, and kind of like it doesn't count any of his spins, and he's screaming loophole the whole time. And then like it's a lot closer in general. The whole thing, like at one point, Davon's team is up 2-1. Um, they eventually do lose, and like okay, I have a question. Did you notice that it looked like Powell kicked Wendell in the nuts
I did not
at
see that.
the end? Like she goes like wow, and like I just thought about I don't
Oh
know.
no, I did not see that. News to me. Maybe that's something we could ask him. I don't know. I do.
I might have to ask him before then, like just because like I know I'm seeing him next week. I'll be like, hey dude.
Did you?
um
Did Paula kick you in the nuts? I
yeah,
feel like if she did, it would have been a bigger moment. Like the show's so camp, like in your face.
yeah.
Like I feel like they would have slow mode it. They would have zoomed in. Like like it kind of reminds me of like when who did it? CT threw like one of his shoes at West. Like
Yeah.
they would have made that a bigger moment. So I'm not entirely sure, but to be continued to follow up.
But it's a thing of like these are two people that understand. Like Pow is like great TV. Like she was amazing on all of her seasons of 90 Day Fiance. Wendell's great TV. So like these are two people that know what they're doing for comedy's sake. Like for like, hey, you want your bit to land in the show, this is gonna happen. So
Mhm.
it could have just been that. And like also like with Reza, this is like when I really realized that Reza getting eliminated so early from the traders was really sucky. Because Reza's amazing on the show. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of the challenge and like the throwing and stuff, my sister Davon, you know I love you, but you made it so obvious that you were
Uh-huh.
throwing. Oh, my
She
sister.
was like crawling at one point.
I was like, my sister, I would have turned slow. I don't know. In the moment you may not like realize what you're doing, but every like CJ could tell. And I was like, this is gonna put a target under her back. It's when you're rooting for someone, anything that like might cause suspicion immediately, you're like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my god, no Davon, no Davon. I know you can act, sister. Give me something, give me something. But I think at that point it was just like, who cares? Who cares? Because like you're throwing it, you're throwing it. I do think it causes backlash, obviously, because it was obvious.
Yeah.
But I think at that point it's like you want to get rid of Justin. You and Justin just got into it the night before. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're lacking finesse, and it doesn't matter that much because it's working out your way. And I think people forget that when you win the goat, you're safe. Like
Mhm.
I feel like like with this format, again, blank canvas. So you're learning as you go. The viewers are understanding the strategy as we go. But when you are safe as the GOAT and you pick a team, you better fight. You better fight like you have one less member, because the GOAT is actually fine. Like they're safe. Like, like it doesn't matter what the outcome is. And that's why I was really confused at first in episode 1 as to like, oh, like why does the GOAT play in these
Yeah.
games? Because they're safe regardless. But this showed again, Davon, you clocked. Give us strategy, mama. You ached. Like she thought of it and she knew that she was safe. She got her troops together and she executed the plan. And it worked. It was flawless, no, but it worked.
The plan, like, I mean, Justin didn't realize he was like screwed until like the end of the challenge.
Yeah,
Like,
and Davon was the last to go. So
yeah.
honestly, like, the way the order of which it happened really did work out, and the people won against really worked out.
So yeah, like the challenge ends, and then we get pretty close to like immediately after that. Devon trusts this table that's Reza, Joe, and Wendell, and she straight up just says she wants Justin out. And this is like the beginning of like the very interesting things in this show, in this episode. Wendell's like, I don't want that. And he isn't happy. And he tells her that they need to try to find someone different. He pitches Lauren, and Davon doesn't want that. And it's so weird because I don't think that they're against each other at this point yet. I think they're just, their current moments are not aligned. Because he's like, okay, you want this person, I want this person, how can we make this work? Okay, well, I guess that won't work for right this present moment. I actually think this is a very diplomatic version of what could have happened the night before with Justin and Davon.
Yeah, I think if Justin gave the space to actually have a conversation, Justin didn't want a conversation. Let's be frank. He didn't want the conversation. He wanted to like say what he wanted to say and like dip.
Yeah.
But this conversation or this scenario with Wendell was actually very disappointing to me in terms of their allyship. Now I know you love Wendell, but I need a critique just a little.
Dude. Yeah.
Because I don't know if they're necessarily each other's number ones, but I would think you're both from CBS, you're both Black, you both understand each other, you come from the same background. You would think that would be Davon's number one and vice versa, right? And the night before, she just had an argument with Justin. Justin is not someone who's going to help Davon advance in this game. And Davon, to me, is your number one ally. I understand it's an individual game. Don't get it twisted. But it's week 2. Do you really need to stick your neck out for Justin? For Justin? Do you think Justin has you as his number one? I just feel like you should pick and choose your battle. I get it. Y'all were roommates and they were roommates. Great. But it just, to me, I think Justin will have Reza's back before Wendell's, or maybe even CJ's. Who knows? But for Wendell to have this absolute certainty about like, let's not get rid of Justin when they just had an argument before, just shows to me, if I was in Davon's shoes, oh, my game is disposable to you. This is something I need to actually ensure that I'm okay for the next few weeks. Justin is a powerful player in this house as well. Everyone loves Justin. So it's actually a very smart move for Wendell, because Wendell can then take Justin's spot amongst that side of the house. And he's choosing not to, and kind of burn an ally and go after Lauren, which again doesn't benefit his game. I get it, but Lauren isn't necessarily a threat.
It's the thing, yeah.
An immediate one. Like,
I think it's because the guys bonded so well. Like the guys clearly bonded well. Like that's what happened. That's what I gathered from the episode. Like the guys are all like, we don't want to lose a guy. We're bonding together. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the idea of a guys alliance. Like, I don't like the idea of gendered alliances. I like the idea of like, hey, if I work well with you, you work well with me. Let's work together, as far as we can. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't know. Like, I agree with I do see where you're coming from, and I agree with what you're saying. Especially because they both are people that are coming to this game as people that know this kind of game. Mm-hmm. And it's that weird thing of like, I think I think they both think they're each other's number 2 or number 3 at this point. Because I don't think their talk burns the bridge.
I don't think the talk necessarily does it. I think it's the choice of not backing Davon. I think there's a
Okay.
give and take in relationships and in games. Like this week, I need you to help me out with this person, and next week, when you feel that immediate heat toward, like if you feel the heat, I got you. Davon was right beside the fire, right beside it.
Yeah.
Wendell was not, and so getting rid of Justin in terms of strengthening his alliance with Davon would have done wonders because she is a powerful player. I think it's better to have Davon as an ally than an enemy.
I
And
agree with
I
that.
think Wendell is choosing to think, I think Wendell's thinking, oh, like this won't matter in the grand scheme of things. But I think we don't know. The episodes haven't come out that yet, but she said it. She said, I'm gonna get you. Like you are no longer good in my books. I think the risk of keeping Justin, I don't think the reward he will reap a bigger reward than if he would have just backed Davon in this one move. Um, so yeah.
It's fascinating. That's the best way to put it.
Mhm.
Like obviously, I think we both want Wendell and Davon to have a good season.
Yes.
And they're definitely both making the moments that they have be very interesting, at least. Definitely Davon. I mean, Wendell is definitely still doing his I'm everyone's friend until I choose not to be, which is kind of
Mhm.
his strategy, anyways, which I mean, it works. It worked for him in Ghost Island and not so much in Winners at War, but you know, um, I think the way that Wendell maneuvers this move is really smart because he is of the guys the person that's most social strategy sound.
Mhm.
And like the alliance is basically called the Gaze and Wendell.
Yeah.
And so I think the way Wendell pitches, he gets everyone in the room that would be in that vote, where he's like, all the guys are going to vote for Lauren, and then he pitches to CJ, who doesn't want to go against the trifecta, but she also, I think CJ handles this almost almost bad. It's hard to tell how it's going to end up for her.
I'm sorry, CJ. What a horrible move. I think the move is horrible. I think the execution is horrible. Mind you, and this is why. Because the last episode, the first episode, episode 1, she makes this alliance. She feels some type of way when Tanisha votes out Joey. You're a liar. How could you lie to me? Da da da. She paints herself as, I'm an honest person. I like loyalty. I like honesty. That's how she navigates it, right? The second episode, you know, Tanisha betrays the girls' alliance. How could you, Tanisha? How could you betray the girls? How could you do that? There's something wrong. He just frames it as this horrible thing. Do I agree it was horrible for her to betray the girls? Absolutely. But CJ, she's the one who's like, this is horrible. And then episode 3, after creating all of this moral high ground, does the exact same thing, but worse. But worse. I was like, really, CJ? You did all of that complaining for the first 2 episodes to do the exact same thing to your alliance member.
You're
Your
in a
trifecta.
trifecta with her.
I was shook. I was like, what is this? What am I watching? What? CJ. It was horrible. She didn't warn nobody. She just did it. She blindsided her ally. And I was gobsmacked. I was like, really? Is this how we're playing after doing all of that moral high ground building up foundation the first 2 episodes? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like she killed her alliance. Like it's kind of like Q turning on the 6 every episode of Survivor this season after that 6-person alliance got created. It's the exact same thing.
I think CJ had maybe the most alliances out of everyone in the house, except for maybe Davon. And like 2 that we've seen, 2 named alliances, Trifecta and the Girls Alliance. And she betrayed both of them in an episode. What? Horrible gameplay. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry. Don't shoot the messenger, but let's call a spade a spade. These people who are playing a personal game for them to like do all of this in the beginning to then switch, that's fine. But then you better own it. You better own it and be real. And after she did the move, she was like, I guess I can't sleep with the girls. And she was almost framing it as like she's the victim. But it's like all of what the girls are doing now after you've done that move is exactly what you did to Tanisha for 2 episodes, mind you.
Yeah.
So I can't feel bad for you. Own it. Be real. Like I was just like, I was like, girl, like, please be for real.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just it's that thing of like, are you going to vote with the person that talked to you last, or are you going to vote with your actual alliance? And that's like now she has to work with the guys, because of all of that. Now, like, I mean, obviously the vote. Well, let's talk about the vote a little bit. So, like, we get to the outdoor part. Immediately, 5 votes for Justin. Then we get to 6 votes for Lauren, and there's 1 vote left. If it's tied, Davon gets to take out Justin. It's not. Lauren goes home. Lauren's upset. Everyone's upset immediately. Like, everyone's upset. It's a lot of upset people. And who's the first person to try to quit? Was it Justin? No.
Well, Lauren gives her like goodbye speech, and she pretty much is like, "Watch out for Davon."
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And so Davon's like, "Hold up, hold the phone. Wait a minute. I voted out Justin, proud and loud, you know." And Lauren said, "Well, someone's lying." And Davon's like, "Mama, it's CJ." And Kirsten's like, "It's CJ." And everyone's like, "It's CJ." And they like when Kirsten's sitting with like the safe people, and she's like, "Some of y'all ain't trustworthy. Mm-mm. Blah blah blah." And so this is what starts the fight. But Justin's the only one who says, "I'm gonna quit." Like, I think people are reacting and are like kind of like coming at each other.
Yeah.
But Justin makes a very low by the belt comment, and people really are like, whoa, like that's too much. And Justin's like, "I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna leave." And yeah, it was an interesting fight. Kirsten came through. My Vanderpump sister, my Valley sister came through. She said, "You want to see why I was casted? Let me give it to you." And she gave. I was sad. I was living. I was here for it. I'm sorry. Like, I lived.
It's just like pure chaos because everything outside by the patio is just like screaming. Then we cut to like the inside, and like the Pal has like lost her fucking mind. Like, everyone's just going crazy, and then like I think Reza is like, "Hey, CJ, you should just like follow us because it's not safe for you in there." And then they go upstairs and see Justin's packing his things, and CJ's like, "I just threw my game away for you, man. Like, don't do this to me." It's just fucking chaos and messy, and you're like, wow, what's gonna happen at Goat Manor tonight?
I feel like this was peak the theme that was from this first batch, which is how people are playing this game. And when they're having this conversation, right, Justin is like upset about like Davon throwing the challenge, and Davon is saying to Justin, but it technically does apply to Lauren, this is a game. We are playing a game. This is a game. And Justin wasn't happy. I think Justin was taking it personal, and it's not personal. Like, it can't be explained more. Like, I made the tweet and I said, I pretty much communicated that I didn't understand why people were mad at Davon for playing the game when they signed up for a reality competition show, which is a game within of itself. And there is a game to be played, and there is strategy that needs to be done. So why are we upset? Why are we upset that we signed up for this? We signed up for a reality show, a competition show where you need to play, and people are playing. There's nothing off the table, right? Like, there's nothing in terms of the game strategically that's off the table. And because people are reacting in a more personal manner, that's why we see Justin make that comment. He says, Kirsten, you don't love anybody but the bottle. Mind you, Kirsten was just telling Justin, we love you. Like, Carissa was being nice. She was like, Justin, like, you're in, like, we love you. And Justin just like comes at it out of nowhere, out of left field. And it was just really insensitive. And that's where I felt like the personal jumped out even more.
Yeah.
Um and I think people were reacting to JC's move, and they were saying like, she's a B word, she's this, she's that, blah blah blah, and they're reacting. But I think they're reacting as to like she's this because of what she did in the game, and not like she's just this. Which again, it's blending this reality of like what's personal and what's game in terms of
Yeah.
reactions. But people who are playing this more as like with their hearts are the ones maybe going a little bit more personal with the jabs. And so, you know, you really see like, okay, who's playing the game and who isn't, and what it means to make the game personal.
I mean, what's interesting though is like after all of that, like we get Devon being like, well, I guess I have to go for the goat every time now. And she probably could get the goat every time if she wants. And she wants to go after Wendell. And that's like the way the episode basically ends. And it's gonna be an interesting rest of the season, you know?
Yeah, and speaking of like this season, right? I kind of want to talk about the fallout from this episode,
Okay.
because the episode is I believe called a casualty, or a casualty of war. Yeah,
Sounds
casualty of
right, yeah.
and I think Lauren is exactly that, right? Wendell said that Lauren was a floater. She wasn't doing much in terms of the game, and so he wanted to like snipe at her, which again, interesting choice. Um, but that, I think it's also because he had no relationship with her, and it's better to have a relationship with someone than have nothing. So that's why he probably went after her, right? But Lauren had wrote some comments on Instagram about Davon. Funny enough, it was Davon's birthday. So it felt very much like Keisha's birthday all over again.
Oh
Anybody
no.
and it was a very interesting conversation about like what it means to like play the game, because it just seemed like to a lot of people that Lauren was giving energy to Davon, and like people were like, you're just mad at the wrong person. Like, you're mad at the wrong person. Like, why are you mad at um like Davon when your ally CJ was the one who betrayed her? And so I think Lauren was mad because she was saying how she wasn't included in Davon's plan to throw the competition. And um Davon was explaining to her that the reason why she didn't do that is because she had apparently approached her about an alliance like day one, and Lauren was not receptive, which kind of aligns with the fact that she was aligned with Joey and CJ.
CJ.
Yes, and it just shows, and this is no offense to her, the lack of Lauren's experience in these types of game. Because if there's one rule I can say is never ever say no to an alliance. Never say no to an alliance. Like, if you say no, you're rejecting someone, and if you're not my friend, you're my enemy in these types of games. And so for Lauren to reject Davon's approach to an alliance, I think it put Davon in the mindset of like, well, you don't want to work with me, so you're working against me. So quite frankly, I don't really care what happens to you in the game, which is why she wasn't included in the game, and why Davon felt comfortable using her as a liability. Like, it wasn't her intention, but I don't think it hurts her too much either, because you made it clear that you don't want to work with her. And so there was a lot of back and forth, and people just felt like Lauren was giving the energy to the wrong person. Now, Lauren explained that during press, or prior to press or something, she was able to have a conversation with Wendell and CJ about her feelings. And that seeing the episode, despite her already having a conversation with Davon, seeing the episode just changed things, because she didn't know that the plan was to throw, and that all of these things were done, and that she was excluded. But Davon was trying to explain to her, like, I thought we were good. We already had these conversations, like, and justifying it. And so again, the theme about like how people are playing the game. I think Lauren has the right to feel a little hurt that she wasn't involved in the plan, um, because it ultimately just made her disposable, and she was the one who went home. But I wish there was a little bit more of understanding of like where Davon was coming from, because to be quite fair, again, you projected an alliance with me. So how am I supposed to be forthright with you about the game that I'm trying to play? Like, she doesn't know who you're actually aligned with. She could have told that move to Lauren, especially since she just spoke to Justin the day before with CJ, and she could have told Justin that. It could have ruined the plan. Like, a lot of things could have gone wrong by telling Lauren. And I think, you have to take it on the chin almost, because you made it you made it readily available to Davon for you to be disposable. That's just my
Mhm.
thought.
No, I mean, like that's a really interesting insight. Like, and yeah, I mean, that everything you just said there makes complete sense for what happened. Um, I mean, yeah, don't reject alliance, especially in day one, especially day one.
Yeah, I was just I was really just surprised that that was her approach of the game, because I was just like, again, people are inexperienced, and this is my critique on the show. I think this is very important, right? Having a mixed cast like this works. We've seen it with the traders. It works. And we've seen reality stars cross over from different shows. We've seen people from Amazing Race come to Big Brother, people from Big Brother go to Survivor, Survivor on Big Brother, Survivor on Amazing Race, like we've seen the mix of
Yeah,
worlds in those contexts. And we've seen, these like weird crossovers, like Summer House and Vanderpump Rules. We've seen these crossover elements. But ultimately, the line of like the different universes that these two shows have can either really thrive or really not thrive. And I think, for example, the traders, the context of the game is very, very straightforward. There are people who are there to lie and deceit, and there are people who are faithfuls. So the whole concept of lying and cheating is is in the subtext of what the competition is, what the show is. And the goat, there isn't anything, right? The description of the TV show is we're bringing a bunch of reality TV stars together to figure out who is the ultimate goat of all time. There is no subtext about lying, cheating, manipulating, but you bring in people who are used to that subtext. To win, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so for these other reality stars who are coming in and who don't have that background, you're getting these conflicting moments. And it's sad because, for example, Lauren is someone I love. I am a hopeless romantic. So I watched Love is Blind season one, and it's
hmm
one of the only seasons of that show that's purely about love. It's not about fame, it's not about XYZ. And so I was rooting for Lauren. I love Lauren and Cameron, but
she's
to see
great.
her come onto this show, it was very disappointing, because I was like, oh, like she's not playing the game. But I can't fault her, because that's not really the her original show. That's not where she comes from. So Alyssa Edwards, Reza, whose reactions is very surprising to me for someone who's on the traders, they're not used to this. And I think that becomes the biggest hole of the show. I don't know how you feel about it.
It's is it like my top tier show? No, but like I think what I'm really intrigued by is seeing how people have grown in the show so far. Like people like Jill, people like Pal, seeing like people how they're navigating the show is fascinating. And also, like as I've stated many times, I'm a very big Daniel Tosh fan. So like you see
Mhm.
this hardcore strategy and then this hardcore dumbness right next to it. It's like it's kind of a whiplash, but like in a fun way for me. So like I can't be more intrigued by the next episode than like it's the way I'm excited about this next episode's like how I was when the season Survivor basically started at episode 5. I'm like, cool,
Mhm.
let's go. Like let's go. Let's see this play out. Um I'm really intrigued because like I do love the fact that like these challenges are such an afterthought. Like I feel like everyone like put the show together like this will be fun and silly, and then like they started shooting like, oh, it's fun and silly, but it's also a lot of other things too. And that's the
Mhm.
thing that I really appreciate about this. Like, it's really like I've said this a couple times. It really is a very hardcore strategy version of I Love Money.
Mm-hmm.
And like it is really cool to see people adapt. Will this be a top tier show? I don't know. I mean, we're only 3 episodes in, but like I'm very intrigued to see what episode 4 brings us, what episode 5, what the rest of the season does. And I can't wait to talk to you about it too.
I just hope as the episodes go on that we give grace to those who are actually playing the game,
Mhm.
because it is a game and it's an open canvas, and there is no actual rules about how the game is supposed to be played. And because it's this test trial and like people are trying to like figure it out, people are coming in with one strategy and another. Wendell chose to you know, go after Lauren. CJ chose to betray the girls. Davon chose to win at any means possible. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, because again, this is such a new show and we don't know what is to come to it. But I just wish there was more grace and not like it is a game. Like, you didn't sign up. This is not like, I don't know a reality show where people sit down and relax. Like, even the Real World, they had them working to a degree
Yeah.
because they had to, eat,
Yeah.
So like there isn't a game where people are just sitting at the beach and like relaxing. Like, this is a competition show. So you should have been ready to compete. And I hope first of all that person is okay, because that was
That was a
really
lot.
alcoholism is no joke, and it's a serious matter. I hope they've dealt with that off camera, or they did it on camera, and that they're good and that Kirsten's okay. But yeah, you signed up for a game, play the game, take the game by the chin, adapt, pivot, and be about it and move forward. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah. And we'll be back talking about that soon. We don't know yet. We're gonna be Tuesdays most weeks. Next week, not, because Survivor finale stuff is happening in New York, and I unfortunately am a big Survivor. Well, not unfortunately, I'm here because I love Survivor and reality TV. But this nerd's gonna be hopefully meeting some cool people and being around some friends. But we will be back. So we are figuring out when we will be doing episode 4, whatever the next drop is. Josiane, I know you've been busy. How can people follow you? Because you're always doing amazing things. You just got back from the backyard of the Big Brother Canada house.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on all social media platforms that matter at Josiane XNM, JOSIANEXNM, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. I'm everywhere and anywhere. But besides that, I am on a silent podcast. Obviously, we're doing the Goated podcast here today, as you heard, but I'm also on Bounce Checks, which covers Big Brother, namely the season of Big Brother Canada just ended, but we're working on potentially doing some deep dives with some house guests. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be fun. But I also just went to the finale. It was insane. We did the backyard interview, so I was able to interview the final 3. We are one of the only podcasts that have done backyard interviews. I'm just saying, we're in good company with our hat, but we did it too. So tune into it, get into it. We had some fun. It was a fun time. And we're going to be doing a recap of the season and talking about that soon as well. I believe Friday this week. So keep an eye out for that. And obviously the American season as well, which I'll be on. So stay tuned.
Nice. Yeah.
What about you,
Mark? This is the only podcast I'm doing right now. If you want to go back and watch Lego Masters coverage of me and Josh Kettles, did that all. Like, Lego Masters is great. People don't talk about it enough. Also, I might be trying to figure out if we can do any exit press, like deep dives for Amazing Race once the season ends this week. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at MarkLevy85. My TikTok is like kind of blown up a little bit since I started doing that towards the end of last year. If you want to see me, hear me talk about movie reviews, at Mark Levy, at Movie Mark. Geez, wrong one for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be talking the GOAT with you, the GOAT of Science Podcast, in my personal opinion. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We had 65 people watching tonight at one point. That's really cool. And thank you guys. Subscribe, like, all that things. You know what to do. @sign_podcast on the Twitter and the Instagram. we got ourselves on TikTok. It's not podcast and Twitch. And, you're watching us on YouTube. It's right there also. Like, comment, share, all that good stuff. If you want us to cover other shows, we will. We're expanding our horizons. Like some podcasts, we're growing and we're doing a lot of really cool things. And it's like every day, and I see our little group chat, I'm like, wow, there's some really amazing, talented people out here. Give us all a follow. We're all the goats.
Leave us 5 stars. If you don't like this episode, find another episode so you can give us 5 stars, but 5 stars only.
Yeah. And we will see you guys next time on the Go Podcast. Night. Bye.